I just concluded the video, or I thought I did, and I went to take the battery out of it to put it in the charger, and the freaking thing won't come out. So that ain't awesome. You can get it to fault out by running it like a madman, just getting it way too hot. Welcome back to the channel. Those of you that have been here for a hot minute will know that I've had lately pretty much nothing but trouble out of my ancient Harbor Freight air compressor. If you want to go catch up on things, there's a pneumatics and air compressors playlist right up there that you can go look at. It's also linked down in the description. Also in that playlist, you'll see me do a review or kind of a couple of conversation type of things about my ancient Harbor Freight 90-degree die grinder, because I have used the bejesus out of this thing. It's approaching 20 years old at this point, and I've just ran it. I've mostly ran it with this compressor, which is easily half to maybe 3/4 too small to run one of these pretty much continuously. And I think that may have something to do with why I'm killing this thing. So I had been wanting to go get a Milwaukee M12 die grinder, except they're kind of expensive and the timing was never right. And then I noticed that recently Ryobi came out with an 18-volt die grinder, and I'm also in the Ryobi system. So I decided to snag one of these guys up and give it a shot. So the hope here is that this guy will supplant some of my usage of this guy. At least help me get over the hump until I can afford to upgrade air compressors. I bought this with my own money. In fact, I bought it with the channel's money. This is the first tool that you guys have bought. But nobody bought it for me. At the time I bought it, it was on sale for 99 bucks. If it works the way I hope it will, I think that's probably a decent deal. We will find out together. Now, I don't usually do a whole lot of stuff with brand new out-of-the-box tools. I like to give my stuff a year or two to kind of soak in and set in. In fact, this other Ryobi guy back there is on a long-term review right now. But it looks like this thing just dropped in August. There are a handful of videos I can find on it, some of which predate the release of this, which leads me to the conclusion that those reviews or those videos are all what's called astroturfed, meaning the opposite of grassroots. I'm a grassroots guy. I buy my stuff, I work on my stuff myself, all that stuff. If someone buys you something and hands it to you and says, go review this, I can't really say that's an honest thing to do. It's not to say there aren't people that do it honestly, I'm just not someone who does that sort of thing. It also looks like Home Depot in the United States has started a seed program on their webpage, which is basically the same thing. They just mailed out like 100 of these for free and a bunch of guys gave them 5-star reviews. So since this is brand new and there aren't a ton of voices out there right now, and I don't know about the honesty of the voices that there are, we're gonna do this in segments. So we're gonna get this guy out of the box and just see what's in the box. And I've got a couple of things that I really don't need to do, but should be a pretty aggressive test for this guy. Then we'll release this video and we'll let this guy simmer out in the shop for another year or two, and we'll do a follow-up video. In fact, it's probably something I'm going to start doing with a lot of things, is do like annual follow-ups. Let's get the box opened up and we'll see what we got for our 100 bucks, and then we'll put it to work doing just a couple quick things. And here's what you get in the box: instructions that we are probably never going to read. And when I say probably never, I mean housed little collet wrench that we'll probably also never use. We'll just throw that in the air tool drawer with the other collection of those I own. And then the tool itself. And the only direction that they put on it that I think we actually need to know is on this little badge. And basically it says that this thing has some sort of a double releasing collet. And I've already played with that a little bit. What that really means is that when the collet is tight, and here's the lock for it, by the way, that once it's tight, you break it free once, and then when you get about right there, it gets stiff again. It says to continue to break it free at that point. So really no big deal. It feels kind of like bad threads, but I'm guessing that it's probably a good thing. But now that we know that, and we'll go ahead and just christen it by bashing it into stuff right away. One thing I don't like, and I have giant hands, but it sure would be nice if that trigger actually hit your index finger. You got to kind of get your whole hand on it. And something I always hate are these spring-loaded detents. They put that on there as a safety. I disabled it from my pneumatic one ages ago. The Ryobi may suffer the same fate, but you be you, and you decide what you want to do. Right now, just for giggles, I've jacked a 3-amp-hour battery in it, and it's down on setting 1. It has 4 speed settings, I guess, which looks kind of slow. Let's wing that on up to 4. Oh, she sounds gutsy at 4. One thing I will say is it's kind of heavy. I also was not expecting the light. I did no research whatsoever before I bought this thing. So that's kind of cool, but what is really cool is it's basically silent. Let's turn it back down to 1. In our first project, we're just going to start with something kind of small and goofy, and somewhat unbelievably, that is exactly the kind of stuff I like cordless tools for, because I can just grab it, do my 30 seconds of work, and move on. This is going to be kind of fun, because these are just cheap Harbor Freight wire brushes that are for like drills, and I always spin them up in my die grinder, and they always blast bristles everywhere. So I've got this guy, well, it was turned down to 1. Now it is turned down to 1 again. With the variable trigger, I can turn it really nice and slow. So that's pretty cool. It's a little more controllable than air. So I'm going to use this just to rough this up for some glue. Working good. Good deal. And this is dramatically more controllable than like a drill, and I can also just feel it's got more power. So I know what you're thinking looking at a drill brush in a die grinder, but just on feel, I do like this better. And I found that with my air tools too. Alrighty, so here's one that's slightly less ridiculous. I need to clean up this brake spindle for some new pads and calipers. And I also like to use these, really cheap Harbor Freight brushes for this, because they tend to polish instead of grind in, as opposed to what you just saw in that plastic. On cast iron, they're not that aggressive. But as you might be able to see, it is nighttime out there. It isn't quite to the point where I would feel really bad running the air compressor, but it's close enough. So we're going to turn this guy back down to 1, or leave it on 1. We're going to go to work here. And I can pretty easily talk over the thing. Making good power. And that's polishing up nicely, just so you guys can see a little easier. And that's on 1, and I'm not shooting bristles every which way. And again, just for your benefit, I'll just hit this on up here where I don't really need to. And that's not a machine surface, that's just as cast, so it's not going to clean up perfectly. This thing's not shooting bristles everywhere, which is nice. Let's go ahead and bust that on up to 2. 2 sounds like just like 1. Oh, it was on 1. All right, there's 2. There we go. Ooh. She's buzzy. She gets on down though. Yeah, this thing is really, it's certainly a lot quieter than an air tool, which is nice. I'm just talking to you right now. I don't know if you'll be able to hear me or not. Cool. So those are pretty nicely cleaned up. There's a look at what we just did down on the bottom. Looks like up on top I need to work a little more, but that's not the tool's fault. Looking pretty good. And that's the as cast stuff I was just cleaning up for fun. Yeah, she's doing a nice job. It is certainly more buzzy in the hand than an air tool. It's not as smooth. And it feels like half throttle on 2 is more power than full throttle on 1. Yeah, that's about right. So it's kind of feathering 2 seems to be working good for me. She's doing pretty nice. No compressor required. By now my compressor would have cycled probably at least twice doing this. That battery was full. That battery ran a flashlight for a few hours, so you may as well say that battery was full when we started. So she's doing fine. We'll get into something much more aggressive next, and I'll charge that battery all the way up. Actually, I lied. While I'm here, I actually want to touch up this spindle face, but I don't want to use this brush. And I've noticed that I've intentionally not been tightening this collet very hard. And then that's that second stage. Once you get past that, brush comes out. 12 seconds ago I had the brush I wanted. Up there it is. So it's a cone brush, and again, this is rated for a drill. It's rated for 4,500 RPM. And I run these in my die grinders all the time. Not saying you should. That's all the more I'm going to tighten it. Just a little bit of a snug. I'm going to turn it back down to 1. And it's kicking bristles out, but not like it would if it were the full 20,000 RPM air tool. Again, you should not be doing this, but I do it all the time, so that's what I'm going to keep doing. And I am running on 1 flat out here doing this. So your benefit will go down the yard flat out. So I have to mess around with some other brushes and get down in there if I want. And this thing is turning hard enough that it's shooting bristles everywhere. But again, that's not the point of not the fault of the tool. It's just doing what it's supposed to do. Just to illustrate it again, this is the lock button on the bottom. So I've got it locked in. I'm going to loosen it so I can change brushes again. That's all the tighter I had it. So there it's on that first step, and the brush still won't come out. There I've turned it to a second stage and it pops out. I really like this collet. The more I use it, it's much more forgiving than my regular die grinder. I don't think that brush is going to do it for me. I'm going to chuck it up as loose as I can. So basically as far outboard as possible, because I want all the depth I can get. Since I do have just barely any of it in there, I'm going to tighten it down pretty good. Something I just noticed right there is I naturally want to support it up here and ride the collet lock. That's not good. It'd probably be nicer if that lock were on the side. So far, ergonomically, I would like a trigger up here like a regular drill, and I'd like the lock moved up here. But all in all, I like the tool so far. It's doing the things it ought to do. Just for fun, let's get on that ludicrously gross axle shaft. Just cause, and again, the tool's still in 1 here. I am actually able to spell it out like that, but it's really eating, and it's just killing battery too, which for me is okay. I have plenty of batteries, and I have big ones. I have 9 amp hour batteries if I want. For you, that might be something to consider. We'll find that out later. I'll get a full charge on this battery, and we're going to really send this thing through some work. But it did a pretty nice job on this super hyper gross axle shaft. Didn't take too terribly long to do it either, so cool. Something else I just noticed as I'm just kind of handling it, put the battery in the charger and all that, is that actually got it significantly warm. It's by no means hot. I just wasn't really expecting that. I guess I was working it pretty hard though. I didn't really think about it until I noticed that. But what I did right here, especially, this axle shaft and all that, it might have only been a minute or 2 of actual work on camera, but that would have taken me 10 or 15 minutes with my crappy air compressor. So this thing just dramatically sped up my workflow just from not having to wait from the compressor. So when I really think about it, the heat it's generating compared to like 10 or 15 minutes of compressor heat is really no big deal. But it's something to keep in mind, especially since I'm, old school. My air die grinders and all that crap, like I've run them for hundreds of hours, they actually ice over. They get cold. You never have to worry about them. So that's something I'm gonna have to keep in mind on this guy, is it does get warm as you use it. So, give it a rest every now and then. Something else, maybe that was in the manual I threw away. Doesn't look like there's a home for this wrench. And I wasn't worried about this wrench at first because I was expecting this to be, the same kind of chucks I'm used to on my die grinders where you need 2 wrenches and 5 men to use them anyway. But this actually works so well, I think I do want to kind of, strap it to the tool somewhere. It'd be cool if there were a little slide-in thing here. In fact, I may glue like a couple rare earth magnets or something to mine to just hang that on there. Yeah, unexpected things, or things I didn't think much about until a few minutes passed by. Once we get a charged battery, we're going to really put the thing to work with a die grinder grade brush. We're going to turn it up on 4 and let it eat. This rotor, truthfully, I should probably just replace it. I kind of want to see what's going on with this project anyway, but she's got plenty of rust. We're going to get down in this hat and just let it eat. We're going to do everything we can to make this look new just because we can. Alrighty, so we're back the next day. We have the same battery, but with a fresh charge in it, and we are going to put a serious brush in it. This thing is actually intended for die grinders, and it's a knotty brush. So those are all twisted up into like really gnarly wire sticks. These things are pretty beefy, and this one has seen better days, so it might be hard to see. But right there by my thumb, it says do not exceed 20,000 RPM. So the goal here is to get the guy checked in there. Oh yeah, I forgot I tightened the bejesus out of that because I didn't put much in there. So as I was saying, the goal is to get it chucked in there, kick this guy on up into high gear, 4th, and let it eat. I'll probably take my temperature gun out there with me just to monitor this thing. So it was getting a little bit warm the last time we used it, but I think she's gonna do okay. Let's go find out. Here we go. Looks like when you really spin it up, you need to tighten that collet more than I have been. I've been really gentle with it so far. Alrighty, I put some juice to it that time. And it's worth repeating, this thing is buzzy. It vibrates quite a bit, and that might be what shook the collet. If the collet shook, we'll find out, I guess. And I can see from the way the brush is flaring out that I'm probably spinning it too fast. Let's drop it down to 3. We're not having a performance issue with speed anyway. It spins plenty fast. Actually, I don't think it needs even that. Let's bring it back down to 2. Yeah, I can feel her building some heat. About 101. See if I can get down in there. It says 123 down inside that vent. It says 105 down in there. 104. Rear's saying about 99 there. And it's probably about, I don't know, 75 today, 70, something like that. So yeah, that is something to keep in mind, is you're running a lot of energy through this thing. That was almost an entire 3 amp hour battery, so I suppose I can't blame it. But all in all, I'd say it did a pretty nice job. This rotor should absolutely be replaced. There's heavy rust pitting in this thing. So this rotor's garbage. You get one that's that chewed up, and you saw how rusty it was before we started. You really shouldn't be saving it anyway. If I really wanted to finish, the job here, I would go over this with one of those finer wire wheels I was using earlier. Again, this rotor is just torched anyway. We're just doing this for science at this point. But yeah, she did just fine. I guess I had 2 bars of battery remaining. The battery itself is actually just a touch warm too. Wouldn't dare say hot, but actually I lied. The bottom of the battery is saying 102. Yeah, 102, 100. Yeah, I guess so. Top of the tool right there is up to 106 now, just since it's been idling. It's at 115 internal on that vent. I'm reasonably confident the tool could put up with that. Maybe not much more than this though. There are parts of the world where this thing's being sold where 115 degrees will be the ambient temperature, so you'd have to assume that this could get up to 150, 160 if you were running it like a complete madman like I just was. So I suppose, at least for me, the thing I'm gonna have to keep in mind is that would have been, I bet, 20 to 30 minutes with my air power die grinder just waiting on my compressor. So when I think about how much energy I would be using in compressed air, it's easy to understand how quickly it can drain a battery and how quickly it can heat up. So I suppose if you keep that in mind while you're using it, it's probably pretty good. I also have no other frame of reference, since as far as I know, there's this one and the Milwaukee. And I don't have the Milwaukee to compare it to, so I don't know if it gets super hot or not. But at this point, I like this thing. We'll just have to wait and see how it's going to hold up in the long run. This thing works so much faster than my air-powered die grinders that it's going to be difficult for me to maintain perspective as time marches on. So for things like gasket cleaning and stuff where I may have to lay under something for 10 or 15 minutes waiting on compressed air, and this thing does it in like 3 minutes, it's going to be difficult to gauge because it's going to feel like I never used the tool when in fact I'm using it just as much. It's just a better tool for the job. And at this point, I'm confident in saying that as a band-aid to get me away from my junk air compressor for the time being at least, this is fantastic. For $100 so far, I really like it. We'll do updates on this and probably some other tools every so often and let you guys know how they're going. Well, I just concluded the video, or I thought I did, and I went to take the battery out of it to put it in the charger, and the freaking thing won't come out. I think this thing, I smacked this tab already and got it to release, but I think this thing vibrates enough that it kind of wedged itself in there. I noticed there's some foam pads inside the tool before, so maybe it kind of has the ability to wedge itself in because of the give in the foam. So that ain't awesome. There we go. Huh. So that is something I will certainly be paying more attention to in the future, is to see if it's going to hang on to batteries like that, because that is really annoying. And there's the foam pads I was just talking about. Maybe I need to take those out or something. I don't know. I've never had that problem in a different Ryobi tool before. And once again, another interesting thing has happened. I'm doing the other side of this vehicle. Did another rotor, did another hub, spindle, all that crap. But I was just laying waste to it and went through, I don't know, half a battery just pretty quick. I would say probably no more than 10 or 15 minutes. And then I went to hit the trigger and this light just started blinking, and I noticed it was getting plenty hot. And it has been 10 or 15 minutes because I went in the house, looked up the manual I threw away to see if there were any like trouble codes in the manual, and there aren't. I assume it was overheating. So right now if I blast it, it's like 120 degrees right there. And it has been sitting here for about 10 minutes. The same story. Blaster down in there about 110. Down that top vent, like 113, right there, 94. Top of the tool's coming up like 120 or 115. But yeah, it is noticeably warm. What I would say is if you don't use this like an idiot, you're probably fine. This brake rotor is every bit as bad as the other one you saw, and I just laid into it, just going to town just to see what the tool would do. It was doing just fine. I did notice that down at 1, it seems to perform much better. I also noticed, since I was forced to read the manual, that Ryobi says you have to balance your accessories, which it seems completely insane to me. But you know, if it doesn't run smooth, so when I'm getting that excessive buzz, like maybe why the battery locked in it and everything, they tell you to try and clock the collet to your accessory until you get it to run as smooth as it can. No one on earth is ever going to do that. I've never needed to do that with my air die grinders, but this thing might be a special case, I guess. I don't know. It's an all new world to me. So as time is marching on, I'm already learning all kinds of fun things about this thing, but I still do like it at this point. See if the battery comes out of it. Yeah, but it's sticky. I don't think these pads need to be as aggressive as they've got them. We'll see what happens there as time marches on. And of course, if it does have a battery sticky problem, I'm always open to warranty work. The thing's got 2 years, 11 months, and 3 weeks of warranty left, so we'll find out. But yeah, you can get it to fault out by running it like a madman, just getting it way too hot. But I would think even most professional shops probably wouldn't do anything as dumb as I was just doing with it. All right, so I think now we're gonna actually conclude this video. This will be my 3rd attempt to do it, but I keep using this thing, keep learning more. And I appreciate you guys stopping in to learn with me. So on that note, we'll catch you on the next one. I'm Max, that's Saddington Bear, and we make videos like this all the time. Here are a couple links to some other videos we've made, and we really appreciate you guys stopping in.